Welcome to Design Stand-Up, Episode 5, Beyond Tools, How Building a Design System Can Improve How You Work, Part 2, by Amy Thibodeau of Smashing Magazine. And I'm your host, Ryan Stone, reading to you every Tuesday and Thursday from the best blogs in the design industry, with their permission, of course. It's kind of like a free ongoing audiobook, always being updated with new content from your favorite designers. Whether you are a seasoned design professional or simply a design enthusiast, I am on a mission to help grow your knowledge in all things digital design. We'll pick up today where we left off last episode with Amy's post on design systems. So without further ado, let's stand up. Beyond Tools, How Building a Design System Can Improve How You Work, Part 2, by Amy Thibodeau of Smashing Magazine. Take a multidisciplinary approach. A design system is inherently about being intentional about how you approach, create, build, and maintain the user experience of your product. Having clear documentation, like a style guide, to map out the different pieces of your system is a pretty critical way to operationalize this work. For most companies, the effort required to do this is larger than a side project. It's not something that can be slapped together at a hackathon and then magically stays in sync. It requires some number of people to steward and maintain it. Depending on the size of your company and the complexity of your systems, this could mean one if you are a freelancer, or dozens of people. The important thing is that someone, or some group of people, is responsible and accountable for establishing and documenting the design system. If you want to build holistic products that are easy to understand and use, the people thinking about your design system need to be equipped with a breadth of UX skills. For example, if you don't include a content strategist on your team, or at least someone with deep experience and interest in how your content works in the interface, it's likely that the interfaces built on the scaffolding of your system won't leverage the full power of language. If you don't have a multidisciplinary UX team to lean on, it's important for you to consider the different dimensions that make up a good user experience and represent them accordingly. Our UX practice is comprised of 4 disciplines: design, front-end development, research, and content strategy. Since we've defined these as the UX perspectives we value most on our product teams, we've made sure they're all represented well on our systems team. When we defined the team that would work on Polaris back in January of 2017, it was important to have representatives from each of these disciplines as contributors and as stakeholders. If you approach UX from a holistic point of view, that multidisciplinarity will be reflected in your design system. If you work in silos, or you deprioritize or devalue certain parts of the user experience, that bias will also be reflected in the design systems you build and document. Shopify's multidisciplinary approach to product development comes across most clearly in how we document components in Polaris. We wanted people to have the functional building blocks to recreate components in code or to design them in Sketch. But we also wanted everyone to understand the fundamental utility of each component, the purpose it solves, for Shopify merchants. It was also critical that people had access to the usability rules and content standard for each component all in one place. As I wrote in an article published shortly after the launch of the Polaris Style Guide, quote, "When people understand the logic behind design decisions, they're positioned to build better experiences for merchants." Including this information was fundamental if we wanted our style guide to be a map of our design system and reflect the way we believe a product should be built at Shopify. Our ability to build a design system and style guide that reinforces the multidisciplinary way we work, which is one of the core ways we build great user experiences, depended on assembling a core systems team that reflected our different UX disciplines. We also agreed on some ways of working to encourage deep, integrated collaboration between disciplines. This was important because we were a large team. If you're working with a smaller team, some of this may happen organically out of necessity. 1. Encourage people to move between swim lanes. Designers and front-end developers are encouraged to write. Content strategists are encouraged to design. But everyone is encouraged to code. Embrace the fact that UX roles overlap and intersect. 2. Hold cross-disciplinary sprints, critiques, and project planning sessions. Make it clear that everyone is accountable for the breadth of their user experience. 3. Appoint team leaders from different disciplines and give them shared authority. 4. Make everyone, including team leads, responsible for the dirty work. For the launch of Polaris, this meant that everyone on the team submitted diffs, reviewed pull requests for code changes, and edited content in Markdown. No job was too small or inconsequential for anyone, regardless of discipline or job title. Build your map. Creating the documentation for your design system can be labor-intensive, but it's easier once you've defined your purpose, created and analyzed the inventory of your system, and assembled a strong, multidisciplinary team. One of the most valuable outcomes of creating documentation is that writing is a great way to clarify what you think. For Polaris, the bulk of our new documentation was about our components. Content strategists created a template that allowed the different content chunks the team believed were critical to creating useful documentation about each component. Then it was shared responsibility across the team to write that documentation. The goal in sharing writing responsibilities wasn't for everyone to generate perfect prose, but to have everyone on the team use language as a way to think through the utility, functionality, and UX best practices for each component. One of the ways we encouraged collaboration was to use tools that were accessible to people from different disciplines and teams. We used a gigantic Google document as a scrappy content management system as we were writing and editing our map. At its longest, this document was 180 pages of mainly text. Internally, Shopify defaults to open, so we gave everyone in the company access to our draft and encouraged people to add comments, make edits, and to contribute. Doing this was noisy at times, but the challenge of managing lots of input was far outweighed by the goodwill and buy-in it resulted in. Design systems are relevant to people outside of UX, and giving a wide range of people the opportunity to give feedback was an important way of making sure our assumptions were challenged and rigorously tested. In addition to using Google Docs to manage our content creation and editing process, we use Markdown and GitHub for our style guide because it lowered the bar for contributions. This decision continues to be an important way the Polaris team is able to encourage people from across Shopify to edit and add to the style guide. Your style guide helps make the system explicit and gets people moving in the same direction. The way that you go about creating this documentation and the decisions around what you choose to include or exclude will inform how people use it and whether they recognize it as relevant to them. Last thoughts. Building a design system and the documentation that defines it can be an opportunity to rethink how you approach UX, or it can be a vanity project that reinforces existing problems. This is true whether you're working in-house at a large company or trying to bring order to a product you're designing for a client. Launching the Polaris Style Guide was just the most visible outcome of a lot of deep thinking and work across multiple disciplines and many different teams. The long, hard work is what came before the launch, and what has continued behind the scenes since then. Lots of people working together to iterate on how we build products and how we document what we've learned. This quiet, deep work is where the real value lives. A style guide is simply a map. It can orient you and show you the way, but whether you get there and who you bring along are up to you. You just listened to the post titled, Beyond Tools, How Building a Design System Can Improve How You Work, Part 2, by Amy Thibodeau of Smashing Magazine. If you want to learn more about Amy and read some of her other amazing design articles, just press the link in the show notes or head over to Smashing Magazine at smashingmagazine.com. And while you're there, I would definitely recommend checking out the Smashing membership, the best thing invented since yummy cappuccino. Smashing books, webinars, and conferences for just $1 coffee a month. You can also access this full episode along with others at designstandup.com. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, fill up those coffees, turn up those tunes, and let's design a better world.